Hello everyone, time for a story. So today we're going to read a story about this guy. Do you know who he is? Have you seen him before? Now I'll give you a clue. In real life he's very, very, very tall. Some might even say he's a giant. Does that give you a clue for what our story might be about today? Shall we see? Smartest giant in town. So we're going to read this story today. Some of you might have already read it before. Should we see what happens? The smartest giant in town. Oh, George was a giant, the scruffiest giant in town. He always wore the same old pair of brown sandals and the same old patched up gown. I wish I wasn't the scruffiest giant in town, he said sadly. Can you see all the other people? They're all dressed quite smart. But one day, George noticed a new shop. It was full of smart clothes, so he bought a smart shirt, a smart pair of trousers, a smart belt and a smart stripy tie, some smart socks with diamonds on the sides, and a pair of smart shiny shoes. Now I'm the smartest giant in town, he said proudly. Look, there's all the things he bought. And there he is, in the shop. Can't quite fit in the shop, can he? George left his old clothes behind in the shop. He was about to go home when he heard a sound. On the pavement stood a giraffe who was sniffing sadly. What's the matter? Asked George. Look, can you see? There's the giraffe. It's my neck, said Giraffe. It's so very long and so very cold. I wish I had a long warm scarf. Ah, cheer up, said George, and he took off his stripy tie. It didn't match my socks anyway, he said, as he wound it round and round the giraffe's neck. It made a wonderful scarf. Thank you, said the giraffe. As George strode towards home, he sang to himself, My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town. And there he is walking off, and he's still really happy because he's helped out a friend. George came to a river. On a boat stood a goat who was bleating loudly. What's the matter? Asked George. It's my sail, said the goat. It blew away in the storm. I wish I had a strong new sail for my boat. Can you see? Look what happened to the boat. The sail went. Cheer up, said George, and he took off his new white shirt. It kept coming untucked anyway, he said, as he tied it to the mast of the goat's boat. It made a magnificent sail. Thank you, said the goat. Look. Isn't that fantastic? George strode on, singing to himself. My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. But look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town. And he's still really happy. That's 2 friends he's helped now. George came to a tiny ruined house. Beside the house stood a white mouse with lots of baby mice. They were all squeaking. What's the matter? Asked George. Look what's happened to the house. It's our house, squeaked the mother mouse. It burnt down, and now we have nowhere to live. I wish we had a nice new house. Oh dear, can you see what's happened? Cheer up, said George, and he took off one of his shiny shoes. It was giving me blisters anyway, he said. As the mouse and her baby scrambled inside, the shoe made a perfect home for them. Oh, thank you, they squeaked. Look, there all they are. George had to hop along the road now, but he didn't mind. As he hopped, he sang to himself, "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, my shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat, my shoe is a house for a little white mouse, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." George came to a campsite. You see? Beside a tent stood a fox who was crying. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's my sleeping bag," said the fox. "I dropped it in a puddle. I wish I had a warm, dry sleeping bag." Look, as he was walking, it fell. "Oh, cheer up," said George, and he took off one of his socks with diamonds up the sides. "It was tickling my toes anyway," he said. As the fox snuggled into it, it made a very fine sleeping bag. "Thank you," said the fox. Look, there he is, all snug. George hopped on, singing to himself, "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, my shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat, my shoe is a house for a little white mouse, one of my socks is a bed for a fox, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." George came to a big squelchy bog. Beside the bog stood a dog who was howling. "What's the matter?" asked George. "Oh, look. Oh, no." "It's this bog," said the dog. "I need to get across, but I keep getting stuck in the mud. I wish there was a safe dry patch. I wonder what will happen." "Cheer up," said George, and he took off his smart new belt. "It was squashing my tummy anyway," he said. As he laid it down over the bog, it made an excellent path. "Thank you," said the dog. Look, now he can walk across and he won't get stuck anymore. The wind started to blow, but George didn't mind. He hopped on, singing to himself, "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, my shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat, my shoe is a house for a little white mouse, one of my socks is a bed for a fox, my belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog, but..." Shall we see? "My trousers are falling down. I'm the coldest giant in town." Uh-oh. Suddenly, George felt sad and shivery and not at all smart. He stood on one foot and thought, I'll have to go back to the shop and buy some more clothes," he decided. He turned around and hopped all the way back to the shop. But when he got there, it was closed. "Oh no," cried George. He sank down to the doorstep and a tear ran down his nose. He felt as sad as all the animals he had met on his way home. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw a bag with something familiar poking out of the top. George took a look closer. "What is it?" "My gown!" he yelled. "My dear old gown and sandals." George put them on. They felt wonderfully comfortable. "I'm the cosiest giant in town," he cried, and he danced back home along the road. Outside his front door, all the animals he had helped. They were carrying an enormous present. Look! What was in it? Come on, George, they said. Open it. George untied the ribbon. Inside was a beautiful gold paper crown and a card. Look inside the card, George, said the animals. George put the crown on his head and opened the card. Inside, it said, shall we see? Your tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. Your shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. Your shoe is a house for a little white mouse. One of your socks is a bed for a fox. Your belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog. So here is a very fine crown to go with the sandals and gown of the kindest giant in town. What a lovely story. So he started off as the scruffiest, he became the smartest, and he ended up being the kindest giant in town. Who can you be kind to today? Goodbye.